Riverbank, the City of Riverbank Planning Commission meeting will commence. We'll start. Agenda for Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, 6 p.m. Call to order.
Roll call. Commissioner Scott McRitchie.
Here.
Commissioner Edward Tobacco.
Here.
Commissioner Jones Stewart is absent. Vice Chair Larry King. Here. Chair Anthony McKinney.
Here. Conflict of interest. Any planning commission member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, we move forward. Public comments. No action can be taken at this time. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person under state law. Matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the Planning Commission Board. So are there any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are to be acted upon by a single action of the Planning Commission Board unless otherwise requested by an individual Planning Commission member for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by roll call vote. Item 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 of the consent calendar. Anybody want to move the motion or have any comments on it?
I'm not sure if we have to remove 2.3,
Yes.
so we do that separately.
Yeah, let's remove 2.3.
So I like to make a motion for approval, for removal of 2.3 from the consent calendar.
I'll second that motion.
This is just for the removal or for the approval of 2.1 and 2.2? Just, okay. Planning Commissioner McRitchie.
Yes.
Tobacco.
Yes.
Vice Chair King.
Yes.
Chair McKinney.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
I move approval of items 2.1, 2.2.
I second it.
Commissioners McRitchie.
Yes.
Tobacco.
Yes.
Vice Chair King.
Yes.
Chair McKinney.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of item 2.3. Can I make a motion if,
Didn't we just remove it?
Two can vote. No, it's just removed from the consent calendar.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it's going to take it separately. So there's a motion on, so as it stands, there's a motion on item for approval of 2.3. Two commissioners are able to vote. Motion would require both of them to vote in favor for it to pass.
I'll second the motion.
There was an error on that. I don't see it right now. But at any rate, what it did is it had Commissioner Tobacco both being absent and voting in favor of the item. And on 192 pages, I never can find the right one. But that's why I asked to have it
So the
pulled.
minutes reflect that Commissioner Tobacco and Commissioner King were absent.
Yes, but it says a motion was approved by Mr. Commissioner Tobacco. Should have been myself.
Okay.
So I can't put my finger on it right now, but Mr. Tobacco couldn't be both absent and in favor. Okay, all right. If that's corrected, then I would move approval, or if someone else hasn't already done that.
Yep. So we already have a motion and a second.
Motion was made by Mr. McRitchie first,
No, it was, Commissioner Tobacco.
tobacco. That was confusing. Okay, so Commissioners McRitchie,
Yes.
and then we have Commissioner,
Still call their name so that they can say abstain.
pardon me? Commissioner Tobacco, that's right.
Abstain.
Vice Chair King,
Abstain.
abstain. Chair McKinney,
Yes.
motion passes 2-0.
Moving to item 3, public hearing presentation. Item 3.1, the general amendment, number 02-216 zoning ordinance amendment number 02-216 vesting tentative map application number 02-216 River Road APN 062-021-008. The project consists of general amended red zone and tentative maps to subdivide approximately 9.1, are we saying acres, into 51 single-family detached home lots. Overall residential density of 5.6 acres, drainage basis. So we are moving on this to, you have something to present on that?
Good evening, council members. This project has been called the River Run subdivision, and it is a general plan amendment, zoning ordinance amendment, and a tentative map 01.2016. As I mentioned, the project consists of a general plan amendment, a rezone, and the tentative map. The project location is directly east of the high school at Central and California. Here's an existing aerial view of the map overlaid on top the aerial. So the current general plan designation is medium density residential, 8 to 16 units per net acre, and they propose to take it to low density residential, which is 1 to 8 units per net acre. So the municipal code requires the project to be consistent with the city's general plan policies. So I've got a couple of them up here. Policy Design 2.1, which has to do with visually attractive streetscapes with trees, sidewalks on both sides of the street, planting strips, attractive transit shelters, and pedestrian scale streetlights. Policy Conservation 4.2, approved projects, plans, and subdivisions shall provide for collection, conveyance, treatment, detention, and other stormwater management measures, which this project does do. Conservation 8.6, the city encourages more compact development to achieve more efficient use of resources. And then the rezone. The current zoning is single-family residential, and they propose a planned development because some of the standards they propose are slightly different than the R1 zoning. That's not very easy to see. So that is a comparison between the planned development and the R1 zoning. You probably can't see it, but it does have slightly smaller lots. It has smaller streets, but they have been reviewed and approved by the fire department for turning at the knuckles. And let's see, there was one other thing. I wish I could read it. Okay. So in exchange for providing the change in the standards for the R1, the applicants are proposing some amenities to compensate for those changes. One of the amenities they're thinking of is to install the electrical in the garages so that the folks moving in can have electric vehicle charging stations in their garages. Another amenity that they're proposing is around the top part of the drainage basin, some picnic tables and trash cans and enhanced landscaping. Their design guidelines does not have the architecture in it yet, so we're not approving any houses or architecture tonight. There's a possibility that the developer could, pass this on to somebody else to build. So they supplied some example architecture that they would like to see in the project. Looks like it'd be a mix of single and two-story homes. And here is a sample of the streetscape. Per the environmental, we have prepared an initial study and a mitigated negative declaration, which means that if the developer moves forward and follows the mitigation measures, that there will be a lessening of the impact of the project on the site. Whoops. Looks like I got the wrong one on here. I apologize. It's not the one I printed. I'll kind of go over that. The mitigation measures, the air quality was discussed, which covers, which would require covered materials on the job site, watering down of the dust that's created, track outs, lowered road speeds, and a complaint number posted for the neighbors. As far as biology mitigations, pre-construction surveys for Swainson's hawk, burrowing owls, nesting raptors, and archaeological remains. A geotechnical study to look at the geology. Hydrology, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and stormwater control plan. Noise, there would be the construction activities would need to have mufflers on the equipment, quiet generators, and a liaison phone number supplied. As far as public benefits, they are required to annex into the Community Facilities District of 01-2016. And then transportation impacts, they are required to have a staging area and have street sweeping during the construction of the project. As far as the, oops, that's the other one. There we go. Okay, so the recommendation is approval of resolutions number 2017-022, 023, and 024 that recommends the City Council approve the tentative map, the general plan amendment, and the ordinance for the rezone of 9.1 acres located at 6272 Central Avenue, based on the analysis presented and on the findings in the published initial study mitigated negative declaration for the River Run development. And the applicant is here. If you have some questions or would like them to clarify any issues on the project.
If you could go back to your slideshow.
Okay.
Then pass the pictures of the houses.
Okay.
Wait. Go one
Keep
more
going
down.
back.
Go back one.
Go back one.
Go down one.
Oh, go
excuse
down
me,
one.
the
I'm
other way.
sorry.
There we go. Okay, that's one thing I'd like to talk about.
Could you talk more into your microphone?
Okay, here we go. I'm having a little bit of a trouble with this whole thing here, and let me tell you why. It's going to take a minute or two, but back when we put the 20-year plan together, we had a planning commission of 5 people, plus we added 5 people just for that. And 3 of the people that were added, one was a farmer, one was a builder, and one was a something else to do with building. And then 2 others. So we got a good picture of what what was going on. Then we brought people in, one each week. They went from the tree huggers to the guy who wanted to pave over the whole world, everybody in between. And we decided that the area out there would be higher density for a lot of reasons. And this plan has a couple conflicts in it. One, we're going to use more efficient resources. Another thing is how they can go to 5 units per acre, smaller houses, because the square footage of the houses was less in the presentation, if I'm correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, we don't know the size of the houses yet, but where the R1 standards are 6,000 square foot lots,
Right.
this project is 5,000 square foot lots.
Right. So this is where I'm having my problem with it, is we're saying that we're going to have, well, the other thing, the mayor made a comment that we need more high density. And this was zoned for higher density, and we're changing it to R1. So that's another problem. The other thing in the 100 pages of stuff that we read through, it wasn't real clear on what was going to happen with the water. And maybe the project isn't mature enough to have that come out, but there were some temporary things that were going to be done and so on and so forth. And then we've just been handed a mandate also that said we had to have filters on everything that was going to go into the groundwater. So again, it may be too general at this point, but I didn't see that. So I have all these different things that the builder, I'm sure, will address, but it just seems counterintuitive. If you're going to 5 homes, those are bigger homes, that means, and the houses are going to be smaller, so that's more open space, which means more water use, this, that, and the other thing. So this is where I'm in conflict.
Okay, well, the current zoning of the site is single-family residential, and they're going to PD, so they're not going from like a high density to a lower density.
Oh, I understand, but
Mhm.
the density they have on the books right now is up to, what is it, 8 or 16?
0 to 8
0 to 8,
is
okay.
the current zoning.
Okay, I didn't read it that way.
I think it said existing is 8 to 16, and we're going to take it down 1 to 8. That's what it says.
The general plan designation, the density is 8 to 16, but the zoning is R1, single-family residential, going to PD.
So, right now, it's high density.
Well,
No.
it's the general plan designation is equivalent to an R2 duplex residential.
They want to change the single-family home.
Well, it is R1, single family right now, and it's going to PD, planned development, so the lots can be smaller.
But still, we're being asked to provide more density or more units because California needs more houses, and yet we're reducing the density from where it could be 8 to 16 is what's required right now, units per acre to 5.8 units per acre. So we're cutting down the number of houses, number of housing units. And that's why I'm confused too.
All right, so let me go real quickly through 2 different things: zoning, general plan. General plan's just that, very general, right? You have to be in conformity with it. It says that we would like to have somewhere between 8 and 16 units. The zoning doesn't say 8 to 16 units. It says 0 to 8 units. So realistically, what that kind of tells you is you should be right around 8 units, because that's the intersection of where the general plan and the zoning match up, would be right around 8 units. So they're doing a general plan change to make sure so what's being proposed here is a general plan change to make sure that, because 5 something is less than 8, right? So we've got to do that general plan change to make sure the general plan works and is in conformity with it. But you're really going from what would, if you read it strictly, if you were very strict in how you read it, 8 to 5.6. And again, it would be in the parameters of what is currently in your zoning. It's just not within the parameters of what was in your general plan designation. So does that
No, that's-
help?
that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, where they overlap, I think that you could look at it as you have 8, because 8 is a number that's allowed on both the general plan and the zoning. So you're going essentially from 8 to 5.6.
Okay, but there's another misleading statement in there, the fact that it's concentrating the housing, which it isn't, if you're going to 5 from 8. So what was presented there and also in our thing is incorrect.
Well, it's more concentrated in that it's going from 6,000 square foot lots down to 5,000 square foot lots, so you're bringing the houses closer together.
But you only have 5 houses in the, you only have 5 houses in that, so how's that concentrating it? They're bigger lots, but it's not concentrating it. Because you still only have
They're
5.
smaller lots.
But you only have 5 houses per acre. How is that more concentrated than 8 houses per acre? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Right, well,
So-
it is net acre. You're removing the streets and the rights of way and
Y'all following what Donna just said? So your gross acre versus a net acre. So gross acre includes all your public improvements.
They're gonna do it for 8, they're gonna do it for 5, it's still the same. You're still gonna have streets, you're still gonna have this, that, and the other thing. So, and some of the streets are gonna be smaller, so it's just seems to be an oxymoron. How can you concentrate it when you have 5 houses instead of 8? It's not concentrating it. And the houses are gonna be smaller, it's weird. So, when the language in the computer, in the thing we were looking at, in what we're looking at, says that it's compacting things, I just don't see it. So it's not a big deal. If that's the way it is, the way it is. But I don't want to see the developer saying that when you can't.
No, I just, because we're making, I mean, you're going to be asked to make a finding tonight, so I think it's important that if you have a concern about, you know, the finding and whether or not it's worded properly, I want you to understand the context in which it's being presented, which is that if you were previously required to build on and could build on 6,000 square feet, and now we're reducing on a net acreage basis the fact that you can build on or have a lot of about 5,000 square feet. You are by that very nature shrinking it by 1,000 square feet of where the property would be. What that would have the effect of meaning if you kept the housing amount the same, which is like you're at 5 instead of 8, it means that, you know, you're probably going to have more public improvements and things of that nature that we're going to have to make up, because it's still, an acre's still an acre.
That's correct.
So, but I just wanted to, it's in that context that we make the representation that it's a more dense,
more compact.
more compact
Mhm.
development.
But I also provided you with several general plan policies, and if there's one policy that you don't feel that it complies with or is consistent with, we could pull that one out. It doesn't have to be in the resolution then. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Kerry Pope, 3237 Riverside Drive here in Riverbank. I want to just speak directly to the density. Under the current zoning of R1 with 6,000 square foot lots, technically we could have brought a map before you tonight that would have complied with the R1 zoning with 6,000 square foot lots, and we would have gotten probably about 4 to the acre. So we've met extensively with staff to try and get not only this issue but other issues resolved over the last 18 months. And so that's, you know, we wanted to get more of a density there other than just on the R1, which is the reason that we're using and go into PD, which actually gives us 5.6 units to the acre rather than about 4 to 4.5 under the current R1 zoning. So that was our methodology behind that. With regards to, was there a question about stormwater, or was that, did I?
Yes, it didn't, there was appeared to be a temporary solution until it hooked into the city water, sewer water. And the thing I didn't see, it seemed very general. It wasn't specific as to what was going to be done.
Actually, that's not the case. All of our stormwater will be held in the basin. One of the issues that we've actually gone up and beyond with is there's a tailwater issue that's been in that part of the city that, and I'm not sure if you all know what, I had to learn what tailwater was, and tailwater is water that further upstream when OID users are not monitoring their water, it ends up becoming an overrunning, basically. It's like overrunning the bathtub. And so we have accounted for that, even though it's not technically our water. It's not caused by this development. It's caused further from the east. But what we have done is we've met with OID, we've met with the city engineer and established a pipeline with some catch basins that would end up getting that water as it comes and putting it back into the Riverbank ditch, which then eventually goes to MID. So it's a situation that we've expressed to the city that needs to be taken on in a more global sense further to the east. We'll be able to accomplish and avoid any flooding and that type of thing, you know, not based on our issue, but based on further to the east with people that are just not monitoring their water, plain and simple.
You know, I understood that in the information you provided, and that's true. I've seen that. The thing that I didn't see addressed really is we've been forced to come up with everything that runs off and it's going to end up in groundwater or something like that had to be filtered to a certain degree, and that's the part that I didn't see in this.
And this will be as well. Actually, Peter Lalonis, the City Public Works guy out in the field, we've worked with him along with Bill Cole to each of our catch basins will have filters on them, and then so that before it even gets into the basin, they have a methodology to be able to clean those out and to make sure that there's no contamination. They've also found that we do want to recharge the groundwater, and through these basins is really some of the best way to do that. The grass in the bottom is cut, and then that is what's taken away and not and actually basically filters the water before it gets down into the groundwater. So.
Your microphone.
You already put more units on the acre, right?
Compared to what the current zoning is today, yes, by almost 25 to 30%. Yes, because right now it's R1, which is 6,000
I mean, why
square
would you
foot
want to
lots.
put more on there? Why would you want to change it to put more?
A lot of reasons. One is that we're trying to maximize density as much as we can with a product that will still sell. And also to try and, with exactly the reasons that you folks are wanting more density, you know, is that we need to try and put as many homes, excuse me, on an acre as we can without, that will still sell, without, you know, so that we can utilize then maximize the property. This is a property that's been in the city for 15, 20 years in the city limits. But it's one that's had some issues, and we feel like that we've solved those. So.
Okay. What is the square footage of these properties? What are going to be the square? I mean, you have, looks like you have. It's going to be a mixed commodity of single level homes and split level homes. What is going to be the square footage of the home?
I'm not exactly.
I mean,
we
if you're
haven't
gonna get
got
4 or
that done,
5.
but my guess would be somewhere in the 1,600 to 2,200 square feet.
Is it 0 lot line?
No, they will have setbacks, 5 feet on each side, and you know, with the normal setbacks as well. So.
Okay.
Okay, another question is on the parks. There's either a park or a fee in lieu of.
Correct.
So when we were doing Crossroads, we got cut up a couple times there, And it was easier to pay a fee, which wasn't that strenuous. And so we ended up with no parks in part of it. So what is the plan for parks?
There is a certain amount of the basin that can be used as that, but we're still going to end up paying a pretty heavy park fee. And actually, when we go to record our final map, that's usually the biggest fee in the total amount of the fees that we have to pay to the city. And right now, I believe that it's running about $850 to $900 per unit is what some of my other developments have been running out in Diamond Bar. So
And that's
This project would have the equivalent of .44 acres at whatever the cost of an acre is at final map time.
okay. Yeah, because the catch basin thing is going to be underwater part of the time, so it's, I mean, you can put picnic tables around the edges of it or something, but it's really not a usable park.
right, and that's what we want to put a little bit of equipment up top because there is an upper level part to the basin. So and we want to try and utilize that if we can.
Okay. So you spoke with staff about, getting all this together. So we're going from 4 point whatever to 5 point something units per acre, which is going to increase the stress on our community services. How are we going to subsidize for that? Because we're going from like maybe 30-something to 51 units on the home, on this particular plot, right?
Right. Each community has a community facilities district or a CFD that I believe the city has contracted with Will Dan and Associates out of Los Angeles. They estimate what each project, what needs to be paid, and that is then put on the tax rolls for each of the homeowners would end up paying for their portion of police, fire, roads, that type of thing. It's a mixed bag when we do these projects, because on the one hand, you're absolutely correct. More people, more density, more stress on the services, and yet we need to be able to provide and maximize the land that we have, and so it's a delicate balance. But in this particular case, we felt that we achieved that. Like I say, we could have come with a map, which, trust me, would have been to you much quicker than this one has, because we've been working on it for a long time. That maybe would have been 35 units. Maybe 40, but we were able to maximize and be able to. So it's a delicate balance that we're trying to achieve.
Donna, you'd mentioned something about something being annexed into something. Could you go over that again? What's being annexed?
Right, the property would be annexed into the Community Facilities District.
Annexed meaning it's not in the community facilities district now?
Correct. Correct.
How is it handled at the moment? There isn't anything there.
Well,
right?
we have a CFD, and when we formed the CFD last year, I think it was 7 properties came in. They formed the annexation and came into this or created the CFD, and so now every project after them that created it has to annex into it, and it's not through LAFCO. It's an annexation through the city into this specific community facilities district.
And that's where the fees come from to pay for what he
Correct.
was just speaking to.
Right. I'm sorry.
It's triggered by the development. Their desire to participate in it is essentially triggered by the development of the project.
Which is typically that's a condition of approval, is that we have to annex into that facilities district to make sure that it's paying its way.
Okay, thank you.
How many phases?
Hopefully just one.
Just one phase. So the Crossroads, what are the homes per lot on their Crossroads area? The last one they just did.
I'm not sure what that is.
All over the place, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, because we've got the gated community of apartments, we've got bigger homes. When that was put in, we tried to get a mix of everything. We had 5 developers, and so they all worked as one to provide the different.
The reason why I asked that question is because I don't know, like, were those like 4 point something homes per acre, or 5? Gives you an idea what it's gonna look like, is what I'm saying.
Well, some of them were, and then a lot of them were, like I say, there were apartments and condos and stuff like that, which were much higher.
And that development, rather than being 9.1 acres, was hundreds of acres, and so you're able to do much more, different things like that with that size of a development.
Donna, do you have a picture of the plot plan itself that you could put up? I think that'll give everyone an idea of what it'll look like.
Let's see. Is that the map you're thinking?
No, I'm thinking of the one that
3.1, I think,
shows,
right?
shows the houses, tentative houses.
There's no houses proposed yet,
You have
so
one.
we don't have that map.
What is this 3.1? You did the little side thing on the side. What is that? That's a diagram. It says if you look on her laptop.
I'm not, these are the only two maps that I had in here.
What is 3.1 attachment 4?
That's,
No, that's not that.
oh, the one after that, I'm sorry. Went the wrong way. There we go.
Okay.
Not the one I'm looking at, but it's close. It'll work. What do we need?
Okay, the reason that I asked for this to be put up is I have a couple concerns when I'm looking at this. One is that one of the things that we're asked to do in our general plan is to create neighborhoods that interconnect so that you don't have just one square that is a town in itself, sort of. That there should be roads or something or connections to the other neighbors so that people can ride their bikes different places. Where the questions asked in the report, the answer is, yeah, they're doing something on the corner of Central and California. They're improving that. They're adding a bike lane right there. But nothing is said about the inside of the development itself. Then you start looking at the fact that they took the streets and they went from a 64-foot street, which is what our standard is, and they're asking with a planned development, you can do that. They're asking for a 50-foot street. So you start getting a 50-foot street, and you have parking on the sides. You have two lanes. It cuts down the street. There's not a lot of driving space on there. The fire department said that they can go around there as long as we did something up in the upper part of it.
Right, they modified the street at the top there, took out a landscape strip so they could maintain parking on both sides and still be able to turn the trucks through those knuckles.
But I have a concern because we did a couple developments recently, and in that there was supposed to be connections connecting those developments, and they ended up not being on the final report. And so they weren't put in, but we're still charged with finding a way where how would people from that development be able to ride a bike other than going out on the street or even walk and get to another housing development that's going to grow up next to it without going out on the main highways. And I think that's what they're trying to get us to do is connect neighborhoods. And I don't see it here.
Well, there are no other subdivisions on the north or the east of this property right now, or the south as well. You do have the row of houses on Central, all facing Central, that have access to the high school just right out their front door. But with the size and the shape of the project, if you were to stub out some roads, you would take out more housing, making it less compact than it is right now.
Yeah, I understand that, but then the other part of it is we are supposed to make them interconnect. And then, the thing that Scott brought up about the park, money in lieu of a park. We've approved several developments like this in that area, and I think most of them are put money in for a park, but we're building developments that don't have parks. because there hasn't been a movement to build a park out there. So at some point, we need to provide parks. Parks are a big part of the community. And so we need to start building the parks that we're promising.
Correct. We do have a project just a little bit south of here where the property owners have signed a development agreement, and they have a paseo that runs through their project that will have 70-foot paseos for not only stormwater but walking and hiking paths. And this would extend out to the east to some property that the city owns out there that could in the near future become a park. Can't become a park until we have money to develop a park. So, you know, on one hand, you would like to see a park in every subdivision, yet then you're kind of stuck with tot lots in every subdivision. If you want something more substantial, you kind of have to squirrel the money away and work toward that goal, which is what we're doing in this area.
Commissioner Tobacco, it's,
Yes.
I understand your concern. And again, if this was a larger parcel, we'd have much more ability to be able to do some things. With these small parcels that are already annexed into the city, unless you combine them, which we've attempted to do, quite frankly, and have not gotten any takers, why we would want to do that as well. And so we have to mix small parcels that we're developing with as much of a density as we can, with a market that will actually sell with the product that we build, and still adhere to, it's a very delicate balance. I understand what you're saying. But I think that with this particular layout and with what we've done, I think that we've achieved most of that. Every single check on the box, probably not. It's extremely difficult.
Where is the emergency ingress and egress? Because I only see like a horseshoe there.
Just coming out on each
Like
side,
emergency services coming in, and
as it comes out onto California.
so there's no other way out but to go in and hook right back out again. Okay.
What's right behind this? I saw on that picture, it looked like a baseball diamond or a track or something.
Well, to the west is the high school, which has some fields, football and baseball fields.
Yeah, I know I saw that as well. I think that might be an old antiquated BMX track or something that was next door. So, no, that's actually to the west. Yeah.
Okay, so as I've read through this thing, your responsibility is the development of this land and so on, but you're not the builder. Is that
Could be. That's possible.
okay? But right now, we don't. In other words, we're just looking at this phase of it.
Right, and then when we come to the point where we've got product that we want to build, we will be back in front of you, getting your, getting hopefully you to acquiesce on that as well. So. The market's good right now. We're hoping that we would be able to get some more product done here this next year. That's the goal. To buy and to do what we've done doesn't make sense to wait. So time is money. So I believe this one's it for 2 years.
And can be extended. Let's see. Oh, I see. That's the track you were talking about. Would you like to open it up for public comment?
That would be a good idea. Okay.
Any other questions for me?
No, I think you've
I'm
superb.
here, and my engineer and my partner are here as well. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so we're going to open up the floor to public comment at this time for this particular item on the agenda. Name, residence.
Bob Miners. I live on Kentucky Avenue in Oakdale, which is one street over from Central. My main concern is the drainage over there. My wife and I walk that area every day, and especially last winter, all your storm drain improvements on Central between Kentucky and California, we couldn't get down Central sometimes. Those dry wells just totally were inadequate for the amount of water coming through there in a rainy season. And in terms of tailwater coming down there, you know, with the new law, all the farmers have to pay for the water they use. So it's not just you pay by the acre, you pay by the acre foot now. That is really reducing tailwater in the OID region and in any agricultural that has water. So that is the main way you're going to get people to stop over irrigating. That, and you know, that there's a groundwater coalition going on right now, and as part of that, all the farmers are being asked to control their tailwater, and you have to put into the commission what you're doing, what kind of mitigation are you doing. Are you putting up, you have grass on your irrigation ditches? How are you keeping sediment and pesticides and nitrates on your property and not letting them go off? So there's a lot of things going on right now that is going to help this, but I just don't see a catch basin as a temporary solution over there. It's just, that area's been bad for years. Unfortunately, it drains a lot of different areas. And a lot of that in the wintertime is just plain storm drain. It's not irrigation water. The irrigation district stopped middle of October, and it won't start up again until April. So all the water you're seeing in the wintertime is just storm drain water. And we saw an exceptional year last year, and it was a mess down there. The other thing I had a question for, do we have the sewer capacity for all this in the city? At one time I heard we were not in compliance with California regulations. Has that been corrected?
We do have capacity.
You have capacity, okay. And this is being put into the Stanislaus River, right? The treated effluent?
Well, the city actually, no. The new apartment project recently put in a deep sewer line in California and crossing to Claus. And so all the new development on that side will be using that new sewer line.
Okay. And I would just hope this project goes better than your low-income housing project that you just finished on Claus Road. That thing was an absolute mess in terms of time it took. Claus Road, I don't know how many times it was torn up and put back together and torn up again. It just seemed like nobody knew what they were doing. I know the bad winter didn't help, but they had half the roofing on over there, and then the rainstorms came and it blew it all off and they had to redo it. So that's another concern. The other one is traffic. We are getting a lot of cross traffic coming down Snedeker, bypassing the high school, and it's only going to get worse. And now you're going to feed in Central Avenue, which is a very small street. And then you're going to drop it off where? At Snedeker? And then it won't be improved from there on? That's how I take it from this plot map? Or is it going to be stopped right at the edge of the subdivision? The widening of Snedeker, of Central, I mean.
They are responsible for Central and California at the frontages of their project.
No farther than that?
There'll be a taper at either
Okay.
end.
I wish you people would go out and look at Snedeker at 7:30 to 8 in the morning. People are doing 50 and 55 miles an hour down that street to bypass the high school, and there's a 35-mile speed limit there. So I think you're going to start seeing the same thing past that subdivision, and that's going to get a little dangerous. So thank you for the time. Those are my concerns.
Once the subdivision goes in, like the Diamond Bar to the north, you'll see there will be lower speed limit signs coming in as well, following it.
Yeah, but people aren't obeying them. That's the problem. They want to do, and the other thing is there's only stop signs one way on Central and California, and then the opposite way on Snedeker in California. So the people pick Snedeker because there's no stop sign to go from Patterson over to Kentucky. So people fly down Snedeker, right-hand turn on Kentucky. I've had 2 people go through my front fence. I'm dead end and from Snedeker on Kentucky there because they didn't slow down, and they suddenly looked up and realized that road didn't go through. So I think you're almost going to need 4-way stops out there because the traffic control is just getting ridiculous. And now you're going to feed a subdivision into Central too, and you're just going to, what, you figure 2 cars per household average? So you're going to put another 100 cars in there next to the high school? And believe me, in the morning when they're in a hurry to go to work, they don't obey the speed laws or the stop sign sometimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more comments from the floor? Name and place of residence.
Yes, Mary Conley Alpers, 6200 Snedeker Road, Oakdale, California. I'm just across the street from the city limits. Would you just clarify one thing for me on page 6 in the environmental section? Tell me about the biology concerning the hawks and the nesting wrappers. Tell me about that.
Page 6. Page 6 of the staff report or the environmental document?
The environmental document, the one in the middle where you address biology.
I think if there's, rather than just saying biology generally, if there's a specific number that you're referring to, oh, you're talking about, that's the slides. You're showing us slides.
Slide number 6. Oh, I don't have 5, 6. Okay, that's slide number 6.
No, page number 6.
Well, I know, but
What you have in your hand?
she's showing this when she shows it.
Yeah.
She's showing those are slides. You got the one that says environmental.
Oh, that's empty. Let's see here.
Yeah, toward the end.
Not this one. And I
No.
grabbed the wrong screen, or the wrong copy. So these next 4 are blank.
Would you like my copy?
There's a lot of stuff in there, yeah.
Okay, so, okay, the biology says pre-construction surveys for Swainson's hawk, burrowing owls, nesting raptors, and then human remains, archaeological remains.
How will you address that? Because we have nesting raptors and hawks.
It's
D-
in
dir-
the report that at certain times when they're nesting and this and that has to be reported on all the different critters. Doesn't matter if it's a Swainson or if it's a rabbit or if it's a frog, but there are certain times of year when they're nesting and mating and doing this sort of thing that you can't have this stuff going on.
So there will be a biologist out there keeping an eye on these time frames.
All right, thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
All right. Anything else from the floor?
Hi, I just wanted to address a couple of the issues, if I could. With regards to drainage, we basically have 3 different abilities to be able to capture that water. One is on site on our drainage basin. Another is some French wells that we're installing basically off of our site, which is to the south of California, along the right-of-way over there to capture that water. And then a third is 2 catch basins that we're installing to be able to then dump the water into a 36-inch pipeline that will end up going into the Riverbank drain system that will end up into MID. I mean, much more than that, I'm not sure what else that we could do, but we did want to try and solve as much of those issues as we could that were pre-existing. In addition, one thing that the public might want to be aware that there's probably going to be a pretty good fee paid on the biomigration for Swainson's hawk. So we ended up having to do that on a couple of our other developments in town, and we'll undoubtedly end up having to do it here as well. So not only will we have to have the biologist on site, but we're going to end up paying a pretty decent, and I mean tens of thousands of dollars to be able to go into a bank, a mitigation bank that would end up, you know, having and making sure that those particular species are protected. So, with regards to traffic, that area has had a traffic study out there done, and the gentleman's correct. I mean, that we've had this issue over at Diamond Bar as well, and the only thing that we can really do is to make sure that we've got better enforcement. I think that once we, you know, give a few tickets out to those that are late, they'll get up a little earlier. So,
on the French drains, is there any procedures to keep those clean? In other words, the track record we've had is they're fine for a couple of years and they fill up with silt and then they're shot. So are you doing any flushing or anything like that, do you see?
The city has got specific, and I referred to Peter, which is the Public Works Director. They typically have a specific type of catch basin with filters on them to make sure that they're easily cleaned out, and so that doesn't happen. But yeah, that's right now. And actually, they're coming up with new systems all the time, and it appears that Riverbank has got the latest and greatest, so that you know doesn't happen. So,
In fact, recent state law coming down, the city is required to not only clean out those, but categorize and count and you know decide keep track of everything that they pull out of there, and we have to provide reports to the state on what's in those drains.
thank you.
Name and residence.
My name is Dolly Cole. I live at 4537 California Avenue, Oakdale, but actually my property backs up to this, over half of it. I've lived there 45 years. I've dealt with OID constantly with this drain line. I'm pipelined. That runs through me. That water comes through me through a pipeline, makes an L into this property. It has backed up. It's OID's. It's OID's problem. I've dealt with them. I got letters with me dealing with them. They haven't maintained it. I finally complained earlier this year. I said, we got to stop this flooding. I'm being flooded on Snedeker. It's leaking under the road between my fence and the road. We went out and had to put 2 steel stakes to hold some of my posts up because of the water that's being pulled from across the street in that drain, that people are dumping water into that drain, and it's going under the road, and it's coming onto my property, plus in the back. Well, OID came out earlier this year after I complained, which I could tell you in 45 years how many times they have addressed that drain line in that piece of property that you're talking to on development. So they came out, they spent 2 days, they've dug the ditch out again, and after they dug the ditch out, the maintenance man for OID looks and says, the pipe under Central is partially collapsed. Now, I know probably the pipe under Snedeker coming to me is probably partially collapsed. I don't think it's a property owner that should be responsible for it. I think the city I know you've probably been trying to deal with OID. They're impossible to deal with. But I don't think I should be responsible for repairing the pipe under Snedeker, just like I don't believe the property owner or developers should have to replace the pipe under Central. I mean, that's not their property. That's OID's property. That's Riverbank's property. I mean, and when you're saying, okay, so the water will flow swiftly all the way to MID, no way. First, it has to get past me. And according to the letter that I have dated July 2008, my line's a private line, so they tell me. I'm responsible for the repairs. Now, say something happens on either side of me, what am I gonna do? And right now, I'm being flooded on Snedeker side. So I think it's about time that Riverbank, there's a change of directors in OID. I hope it makes a difference. But I think it's about time. Riverbank's bigger than OID. And it seems like the only way OID gets the message is say, I'm going to sue you, because otherwise they don't listen. But here's two properties, and we're the only ones that's impacted, is this property that you're talking about and my property. And I want a solution. And I don't think I should have to repair a pipeline under your road, or they should have to repair a pipe under your road on Central. So that's my thing. Thank you.
Over the past year, the city and the developer and OID have met numerous times to come up with a solution to this intersection. And in the near future, the city is moving forward to work on a plan with OID and the property owners in the area to come up with a regional solution that will take care of this.
Thank you, Dolly, for your comments. I appreciate it. And you're right. It really isn't our responsibility to have to replace that collapsed pipe under Central, but we're doing it anyway to make sure that we're doing everything that we can possibly do in order to get proper drainage. So it's not our responsibility, but we're going to do it. So, and that's included in our plan that has already been looked at and approved by the city engineer. So.
Anyone else? Closing the floor. Open it back up to, cut on my mic. Is there anyone else? No. Okay. So we're closing the floor. We're going to open it back up for us to make a recommendation on the item 3.1. Do we have any other discussion on it, or we're going to make a motion?
I move that we approve 3.1.
I second it. Item 3.1, items A, B, and C.
Yes.
Yeah, you can vote on all three of them unless somebody wants to vote differently on one of the specific items. But as I understand the motion, it would include the general plan amendment, the zoning ordinance amendment, and the tentative map application.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but I think there's a lot of mitigation in there that would do the best they can for that piece of property out there. It's you can't really say the property owner can't develop the land, and we just have to try to make it the best we can for all the residents around there, plus the people who are going to be living there.
Okay, so that we're clear, we're motioning on item 3.1, items A, B, and C at the same time.
Yes. And I moved.
And then I've seconded.
Commissioners McRitchie,
Yes.
Tobacco,
No.
Vice Chair King,
Yes.
Chair McKinney.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Item 3.2, development agreement, number 01-217, Department File 170016, flavors. The project consists of development agreement and conditional use permit to permit a commercial cannabis dispensary at 2213 Patterson Road, APN 07-026-044. The project site consists of approximately 33,100 square feet, and the existing vacant building is 7,668 square feet. The project site has a general plan land use designation of community commercial and is zoned for commercial 2. Okay, do we have any discussion on this one?
I have a presentation.
All righty, here we go. Staff's presentation.
Okay, this is Development Agreement 01-2017 and Conditional Use Permit 04-2017. The parking required is 17 spaces for this project. They meet that, and actually they exceed it. They have 19 in front and some parking in the rear. There will be no exterior changes to the building. They will be coming forward for a tenant improvement in the future. Here is an aerial of the site. The project site is the very center there with the red on the second-story roof there. The laser doesn't work on this type of screen, so I can't point to it like I used to be able to. Can you tell us the streets? Okay. The street is Oakdale Road on the left side of the screen, and at the bottom is Patterson Road. So this is the northeast corner of Oakdale and Patterson.
Okay.
You have Cruiser's gas station on the corner, and then this was the Valvoline oil place, and there's the call center behind it.
Okay, so is the Valvoline, what you call it, oil change? Is it still it's on the far left of that building. Is it still in business, or?
It is not.
Okay, so the whole building is open.
I was going to get into that.
Okay.
The building has been purchased. You see the red roof there. That's the second story.
I'm colorblind. I can't tell anything
Okay.
on there. So it's all right. He said it's just something sticking up there, so.
Okay, our attorney has to earn his money. Okay, so on the left side of that second story is just going to be storage that the landlord is going to keep, and then the smaller second story the landlord is going to keep as well. So it's only the right side of the building that will be used for the dispensary. And you can see the circulation behind and on the sides of the building. Access will be from Patterson Road at your lower right and from Oakdale Road at your left. Here is the site plan of the building site. You can see most of the parking is at the front along between the building and Patterson Road. There will be some staff parking behind the building there towards the call center. Okay, so here's the floor plan, and I have X'd out the 2 areas that the landlord is going to keep for storage. So the rest of it on the right is what the floor plan is. There are several offices, the big sales floor, a security office, a reception area in the very center. These are the elevations that are existing and will not change. There will be some walls where those roll-up doors are currently on the right side, but the walls will be on the inside of those doors. So there's no site plan design review at this time. The development agreement, some major DA elements is that the term is for 3 years. It's a medicinal dispensary now. It could possibly be adult use in the future if conditions change. There's a public benefit towards infrastructure, services, and neighborhood burdens. There will be a payment the first 6 months, and that increases for 7 to 12 months, and then increases even more to the end of the term.
Payment for what?
I'm sorry?
What's the payment for?
It's a public benefit because this project will, it will increase some traffic. It'll put a burden on the infrastructure. And so these payments will help us to increase our police department, possibly get some software to be able to track the cannabis sales. Yes.
It's general fund money.
General fund money. So to approve or recommend approval to the City Council, the DA should be consistent with the general plan. It should not be detrimental to the health and safety of our citizens. It should not affect orderly development, which this area is already developed. It needs to be consistent with the government code, which regulates development agreements, and it needs to contain a legal description of the property, all of which the DA does contain. There is a requirement for a conditional use permit. You are the approving body of the conditional use permit. This will require live scans of the business owners and employees. It will determine the hours of construction. So, as they're doing their TI, they're not, starting way early in the morning or staying late at night. It will also regulate the exterior lighting conditions, so the light will stay on the property, but still be able to be used for security reasons. And then there's a hold harmless agreement in there as well. There will be no loitering allowed. There will be a security guard outside that will keep people from loitering and to keep the traffic moving in the parking lot. As far as general plan consistency, any development agreement and use permit that concerns the regulation of a cannabis activity should be consistent with the general plan. And one of our guiding principles is our city should be safe and healthy for all our residents. As you know, these uses have been coming down and legalized through the state and will be regulated through the state. And so the city desires to regulate it as well to ensure the safety and health of our citizens. The project does qualify for categorical exemption because there's no expansion of the facility. They're creating a retail use within an existing retail and service building. So we recommend that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution that recommends the City Council adopt the ordinance which approves the development agreement between the city and the business owners, and then adopt your Planning Commission resolution that would approve the conditional use permit for the business. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And one other thing I would like to add is in your staff report, we had listed 13 conditions for the conditional use permit, and we do have a 14th one. This is all new to us. We're kind of breaking new ground here. And so we would like to add condition number 14. The project and project applicant shall strictly comply with all administrative guidelines promulgated by the city for the operation of a cannabis dispensary, specifically including any administrative guidelines later adopted by the city or as may be changed from time to time. So this way, if there's always new stuff coming down from the state, and if we have to change our regulations a little bit to accommodate the state, we want to make sure that the business owner is agreeable as well.
I have a question on traffic. When Cruisers was put in and so on, we were worried about traffic coming off of Oakdale Road to get into the gas station. And that was a concern on the Planning Commission at that time. Now, the Valvoline people and the tire store that have been in there and all the rest of it, the amount of traffic generated by those folks was not very much, so it could be handled. The problem is coming from the side or behind the cruiser, and then the people coming out of the gas station. So the two of them combine in there, which could be problematic because there's a propane tank sitting right there. And the other is that the right across from that is McDonald's, which backs up into the Oakdale also during peak times, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, so on. So I'm concerned about the traffic, and if there's any kind of designation or mitigation or whatever somewhere in that area, either on the property of behind cruisers or whatever, to sort of direct it, because people come out of there, they're going fast. You've got walkers, you don't have a chance. I do walk. I make darn sure I'm looking every which way. But I was afraid at some time if the traffic backs up, the people are coming off of Patterson, turning on to Oakdale, and it's backed up and they're not paying attention. It could be a problem. So there's a lot of, there could be a lot of traffic coming out of the cannabis site.
Yes, I think you said it's going to start out as medical marijuana.
Correct.
And then at the future, it could go into the
The recreational, yes.
Okay. And one thought with what Scott said about the traffic, I'm assuming they're going to want the traffic that pulls off of Oakdale behind cruisers to go behind it and then come to that building rather than go through where the pumps are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you're going north on Oakdale and you pull in there to cruisers, you want them to go behind and not through the pump area, because that's pretty busy in there.
Right. In a perfect world, but
Yeah.
some of their customers could
Well,
fill
anyway-
up with gas
well, anyway.
before they go
That's true.
over. So
That's true.
we do have the applicants here if they would like to.
We would like to, do we have any other discussions? Open it up for the floor?
Mhm.
Okay, we'd like to open it up to the floor for public discussion at that. We'd like to open it up to the floor for public discussion at this time. Are there any comments on this particular item from the floor? You sure may. Name and residence, please.
Annabelle Gammon, Riverbank, California. This application is close to my heart. I drive this 4 times a day. And already there is traffic, like Mr. McRitchie mentions, not just 3 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 12 o'clock in McDonald's, which impacts Oakdale Road. I get gas from cruisers, and I use, AutoZone is there. I used to use this location. I have many problems with this application, or this application, I guess, coming today. Number one, I know it's been legalized in California, and I know that this is very new to California. Just last week, the Planning Commission of Stanislaus County reviewed this because they were trying to amend some of the radius of the dispensaries or the manufacturing, and it was a very long meeting and very interesting. And we should learn from it that there are really very many things still that are unanswered. Today I was driving home, and there were 3 boys riding their bikes. There are lots across the street behind McDonald's. You have children that has a bus stop that stops right there on Oakdale Road. Young kids are on vacation now for Thanksgiving. They're riding their bikes. And this is new. And I just feel like this location, even if it has the general plan, the zoning, okay, though I have a question on that. from our general plan. And I really hope that we consider the safety of the children. There are very many homes in that area. Behind Cruisers, Candlewood, Cherry Lane, all down. Those are all homes with some grandchildren now, because it's an older neighborhood. But on the Karen Elan Street, which is right behind McDonald's, those are all children. Really, if you go there at 2:45 in the afternoon and the bus stops there on Oakdale Road, maybe a few steps from the entrance to Cruisers, you see some mothers coming to pick up their kids and grandparents coming to pick up their kids. I know, I'm personally involved in that because I know some children that are on that bus stop. And it scares me because, like I say, now, scares me even more now that you say, yes, this is medical dispensary, and there are very many rules on that, but it could become an adult, use. I mean, the entrance to this area is Oakdale and Patterson. I don't know if you're familiar. I know Mr. McRitchie is because we come from the same neighborhood. But it's already congested. So even the ingress and the egress to this property or the other businesses there already, there's AutoZone, there's a workout place there. It's already congested. And people behind, they use it even to go to the car wash. I know that because I use it, or to the movie theater, or to cool, the restaurant. So when we did the Riverbank update, general plan update, there was a lot of discussion of Patterson Corridor. That's what we called it. I don't know if you recall, where it was supposed to be a livable, bikeable, friendly neighborhood. Well, it will not, in my opinion, be that, especially now with the option that it might even become an adult use. I don't know if you mean manufacturing.
So actually,
Oh, okay,
so just to be very clear, because there was an accidental misstatement. What's being permitted is both medical and recreational, as was voted in by the voters under Prop 64.
I understand that.
So it's not just medical; it is actually adult use, recreational, pursuant to Proposition 64.
So it doesn't state that here, though. It just says dispensing.
Correct, but it's under the license type. It would cover both medical and, as of January 1st, 2018, recreational.
So when will that be stated in your ordinance?
So right now, what you have before you is the development agreement and the conditional use permit. The ordinance has actually already gone through.
Yes, and ordinances can also be amended, as you know. That's what the county has just been done.
I just wanted, just so that you didn't operate in your statement under an.
Well, so let me just understand that. So that means that this is a dispensing right now. It's a storefront, right?
It's considered a retail establishment.
Okay. I'm just asking, is this going to become like where you can produce it? Because it's a whole together different.
No.
Okay.
It's not.
Because that would have to go to industrial or another zoning.
Correct.
So it's open. It's storefront. There are many kids that go and get their candy from Cruisers. I know that because I see them. They're sent by their parents to go get milk. That's really bothers me. It's not safe. So I'll get to the safety issue. Then the other issue I have is the notice ruling. I talked to Donna and asked how many homes were noticed. She gave me a list of 13 people that were noticed, and most of them were at Cherry Lane. So we haven't heard from any of those 13?
Thank you.
You provided me
I
the
provide
list.
you with the list of the 300-foot radius around the property. It was sent out to those 13 on the list, and we have not had any comments back.
Okay, and we're sure they got them. I'm sure they did. We could ask. Well, I called the title company myself because I think I had a question on notice ruling. Maybe the lawyer can answer this. When there are less than 30, or there's a number, and there are less than 30 residences, then you have to go into a further radius. Is that correct or not correct?
Now, in an urbanized area, you're only required to go within 300 feet.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so how many, the applicant for this, the person that's applying for this, how many projects does he have here in Stanislaus County? I think they have one in Banks, and I think they just got approved at Ceres. This is their third.
I'm lost. What, a project?
The applicant for this, the Pacific Group. The person, the Pacific
What's your question now?
Cooperative. How many applications do they have here in the county?
I'm
This
sure they
is-
can answer it when they get up. I know that this
Okay.
would be one of the
One
third
of
location.
three?
One of three
Yeah, one of three
that I'm aware of.
that you're aware of. Okay. So then, on the general plan, which is our blueprint, I am concerned that you cannot find the findings that you're asked to find. You can't really, there was that slide that says this is for our benefit. I really don't see that's for our benefit. And I think that Patterson corridor, right now where it stands, I think that this business doesn't belong there with all the children, the older folks that are walking. We are an older community there from Park Heights, and a younger community closer to Oakdale Road. Oakdale Road is just 2-lane street. Patterson is congested already. So I just don't see how this was even exempt. I would like to talk to you later on how it was really exempt and what studies you made to make it exempt from CEQA. So I don't take my time. I think
Alrighty.
there's problems with traffic, safety, circulation, and I think we need to consider this. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to address the CEQA.
Mm-hmm.
It is exempt from the requirements of CEQA because it is an infill project. It's not expanding the building itself. It's just changing business owners.
Any other questions? Okay, so we're gonna close the floor to public comment, open it back up to, sorry, we're gonna open the floor back up, sorry, I missed you. And your name and residence,
My name is
please.
Mike Warda, and I'm an attorney representing both the landowner and the project proponent, business operator. Good evening. I appreciate the comments and the concerns. I just wanted to tell you that we're available to answer any questions first. Second, I think that the presence of security will operate to alleviate concerns for safety. Second, in terms of, products not visible from the streets. So, people aren't going to walk by and see anything, especially kids. Third, the issue of CEQA, I think, was addressed because this is an existing structure. The things that the state are concerned about are, don't locate it next to a school, don't locate it next to a playground, put it in a business area. When Prop 64 passed, it was pretty much a 50-50 proposition in the valley. And over the last few months, it started to shift because as people have really talked about it, they realized that cannabis is already here. It's been here for a long time. And it's important to regulate it, and it's important to get in front of it like the city is doing. The city of Ceres has done that, and there was a question about applications. There is one other application that's currently pending. This application is pending, obviously, but it gives the city an opportunity to get in front of an issue that we're already facing. And so again, we think that the location works. It's as good as any other location would be in the city. There are always people on both sides of this issue, no matter where it would be located, that would be saying this might not be a good location for it. But we think it is probably the best location we can find for it now. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Hours of operation.
I think they're required to close at 9, so by 9 PM, business is concluded.
I think it's noon to 9, we'll double check.
Yeah.
Noon to 9?
I don't know if it's noon.
Double check.
9? 9 to 9? Yeah, I think, yeah. Try to keep it sort of standard, so it's not gonna be open very
Okay,
late.
so
Oh,
you're
the other
just a
thing that,
spokesperson for them?
yeah, I'm representing the project. The landowner is here as well as the business owner, and I am a
Oh,
spokesperson
well,
for the
okay.
project.
Okay, go ahead.
The other thing I thought was very important is that everybody knows, there's no consumption on site. It's a purchase and you leave. So nobody's consuming the product on site, so it's not gonna be people hanging around in the parking lot, there's not gonna be people inside, consuming the product. Again, it's a purchase and leave. Okay, thank you.
And name and residence.
Good evening. I live in Oakdale, California. I'm the property owner. I share some of the same sentiments that the lady actually mentioned. I'm in a unique situation where I'm the property owner, but I'm not pro-cannabis. But because of the sentiments that the lady shared are the same sentiments that I do think that you actually need a dispensary in town. I'm not pro-cannabis. I'm against the cannabis laws. And I've got 2 children that are 8 and 12 years old. If you draw a correlation between what happened during the Prohibition era and what's happening today in cannabis, there's a lot of history that shows that it wasn't actually the laws that got rid of moonshiners, if you will, or the gangsters around the Prohibition era. It was getting rid of the laws and allowing business to come in and help create oversight over that, where business owners protected their licensing. And in a situation that we've got here today, I know that 25 years ago when I was in high school, anybody could get cannabis within 5 minutes. I doubt much has changed today since the industry has actually exploded. Matter of fact, it was much easier to get cannabis on a weekday than it was on a weekend. So that tells you how prevalent cannabis is in our society. The beauty about this situation and then this business owner is it's actually taking those funds away from drug dealers and diverting those to the city and local law enforcement. I think that's a win-win. I can't see how it can't be a win-win. There are really 3 areas of cannabis. There's the cultivation, there's the retail dispensary, actually 4. There's the users, and there's the drug dealers. And I think that people that aren't pro-cannabis get those 4 mixed up. The largest problem we have in our society is with the actual drug dealers and the crime and the guns and that entire persona that takes place there. What this does is it actually helps to take drug dealers off the street. As a father of 2 children, I hope that my children never use cannabis. If they do experiment in their teenager years or their adult life, I definitely don't want them buying it from a drug dealer. And if you do not allow dispensaries in the city of Riverbank, you're actually saying we want drug dealers in the city of Riverbank. I mean, you're inviting that element in by not giving the patients of your community that outlet to be able to do business. Is there any other questions I can answer, or? I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone? Maybe the business owner? If you could step to the podium, please. I have a question for you.
Good evening. I'm probably
Name
the
and
wor-
residence.
Bert Sarkis, Oakdale, California. I'm probably the worst at public speaking,
That's okay.
just to put that out there.
Okay. Why you pick Riverbank?
I think Riverbank is a good area for it. The location is a real good area.
Is this the first dispensary you've owned, or is this another one?
No, this is another one.
Oh, so you have where's your other one located?
Right now I have one in Charity in the Stanislaus County area, and then I'm in licensed in Ceres. Yeah, but that one would close down and I would move to Ceres.
Okay, so there's a cultivation and dispensary, so are you going to guys, you have a big facility there, is there going to be cultivation there at any time?
No, just dispensary.
Okay.
Close the thing and let's discuss it.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Anyone else? There we go.
Name is Rolando Andrade, and I, 6437 Charles, I forgot my address. Kenneth Charles Court, which is around that area, about 2 blocks maybe from this dispensary. You know, everything's fine. I'm a business owner. I understand about running business and everything. Now they're saying that none of this will be consumed on premises. Okay, so they buy it and they leave. But they buy it and they leave and they go out to their automobiles where they can light up and they do everything. And then they can drive off with their windows open, just using the product. That's where children can see, younger people can see how cool it looks, how nice it'll look. I don't know how you could monitor this or regulate this, but that's like you're buying beer at Cruisers. You know, you step out, get in your car, and you pop up a drink or take off that and start drinking your beer. And again, you know, how are you going to regulate that for the children? You know, you're talking about it's not near a school. There's a school at the next street between Oakdale and Estelle, I believe. There's an elementary school there. And there's people, bus drivers, enough kids, all these kids going to McDonald's. I mean, Starbucks, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you name it. I mean, it's a high traffic area. And for me I mean, it's hard enough now, you're driving down, you see people smoking it out on the street, just playing like that, you know, not a care in the world. I don't know who passed this law, but anyway, that's my main concern. It's just the visibility of the usage of this product is going to be the big drawback to this. Like I said, I don't know how it can be regulated, but that's something that's going to come back and really bite us because we owe it to our children, grandchildren, whoever you've got, to do something about it. Again, I'm just pointing out a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So if we could, just so you know, under state law, you're not allowed to have on-site consumption. One of the requirements was when you have security guards that are required to be on-site, part of their responsibility is just to monitor and make sure that there's not on-site consumption. On-site for the purposes of our regulations and ordinances on the books includes the parking lot. So we do believe, and the experience has been in other jurisdictions that have allowed this, that the presence and activity of the security guard presents itself and people do leave. That doesn't mean that they're not going to leave and go someplace else, whether it's home or another place. But I would just say that that this is something that's state law now, and people would be able to procure it. It would be no different if they got it from a neighboring community on their way home and then brought it and wound up something else. The real goal of having something like this is to provide a regulated environment and completely candidly a revenue stream in which we have the ability to deal with some of the effects that will be here irregardless of what we do, because as of January 1st, 2018, the law of the state is that recreational use is allowed, not just medical use. So.
Okay. Anyone? Oh.
I would like to add too that the site does meet both state law and city ordinance in that it is over 600 feet away from the school. So it does meet state law.
Yeah, we have cruisers there with alcohol, so I'm sure that they're within the same radiuses within those guidelines too, right? Gotcha. Any other? Okay, we're going to close the floor. If there's no one else, we're going to close the floor and open up for discussion with the commissioners.
Well, the one gentleman sort of hit it on the head for me. I'm not in favor of cannabis at all. I work with the needy people, and they're getting plenty of it. Cheap stuff that's laced with other junk in it. And I was hoping that with the passage of the law that that would eliminate the gangs and the trafficking in this stuff. And while I was also concerned about the fees that charged to the legal cannabis suppliers because of the fact that if it gets too high, the guys on the street are coming back. I looked around town to see, as Ms. Gammon talked about, where the location of this is. Could we put it somewhere else? And I really couldn't find any place else. I looked at every place, and there was the same thing. We had traffic problems, we had schools, we had kids, we had this and that. So I sort of scratched my head quite a bit when reading through all this to see if we couldn't put it someplace else. I think that if we don't have it, Escalon will have it also, Ceres will have it, everybody will have it. And we either miss out or, again, we foster the gang thing. So it's a tough deal. I think that the location they have, if it weren't for the traffic, and I'm still concerned about that, is a good one. It's set back. It's not real obvious. But the traffic is a big deal. But I think if we don't do something in a regulated way, then the underground is going to do it for us. And whether they smoke it in their car or not, if they buy it in Escalon or they buy it someplace else, they're going to smoke it. But right now, I work with these guys, have a feeding program, and we just tell them to get out of there. We can't stand the smell of it. But they're getting it. I can tell you where there's, and I've told the police, where there's grows sitting outside. And under the new laws, all that would hopefully disappear. They'd be legalized, and if it isn't, then they're going to go in and chop them down. So it's not something I like at all, but we're sort of caught in a bind if we don't do something. So again, I think that the traffic thing in this particular location is something that's got to be looked at. But other than that, I see it's going somewhere, and I can't find right at the moment any place that's, I can't say better or worse, but there's some that are probably equal, but the same problem. You got traffic, you got kids, you got buses, you got this and that. So.
Anyone else? I'd just like to comment on that as well, is that, yeah, we do have a safety issue. We do have the society is moving forward, and whether we get involved or not, it's going to consume us in some sort of fashion. And like Mr. McRitchie was saying, is that there is a lot of unregulated uses. With the regulated use, will hopefully minimize and diminish most of the unregulated uses in the area. My only concern is that we're, a city that's in smart growth, something, we don't want to be a beacon of, because going down Oakdale, when you pass Oakdale Road, going down Patterson, I mean, all you see is, tobacco shops or tattoo shops or something like that, and we don't want to have like a red light district type of thing showing up in our city. So my only concern is just the visibility of the place. We can't, we can do our best to regulate, but visibility is, we want to keep that down, because it is in a high visible spot right there. That's a high traffic area, and it's going to get more traffic once this particular place opens up, because you're going to have traffic people come, because they're only going to be about 5 or 10 minutes. They're coming in, get what they're going to get, they're going to leave. So you're going to have more activity going in, more stress on our infrastructures, more stress on our community services. But we do, the flip side of that is our revenue stream. The flip side of that too is that it's after January, it's going to be a legalized entity. We just have to figure out where we're going to put it. That's all I have. So we want to move to make a motion on item 3.2 at this time, if there's no other comment.
And just a reminder to the commission, we would ask, or at least it is staff's recommendation, that you include the condition 14 that we read into the earlier in any motion.
You mean for the conditional use permit?
Correct.
Okay.
Can you repeat the 14? I didn't quite catch.
So, for the public, and just to bring everybody's memory back, what we're proposing as condition 14 would be the project and project applicant shall strictly comply with all administrative guidelines promulgated by city for the operation of a cannabis dispensary, specifically including any administrative guidelines later adopted by city or as may be changed from time to time.
Okay, so I'm gonna move that we make a, we're gonna make an item, we're gonna make a move to motion on item, 3.2. I'm gonna suggest that we, rule on both of them at the same time. Item, can we do that? A and B, just like we did before? Because they seem like they go hand in hand. If there's no disagreement, I'm gonna, motion that we, I'm gonna motion that we approve it
And that
as amended.
is amended with condition 14.
With condition 14.
Second.
Commissioners King,
No.
Tobacco,
Yes.
Vice Chair McKinney,
Yes.
McRitchie.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay, moving forward. Seems like we have no planning, commission commitments. Oh, what?
I was gonna say, just for the audience sake, this does move on to the city council in December. Although they have approved the conditional use permit, the development agreement is adopted by ordinance, so it does have to have 2 hearings at city council. So it will be in city council, December 14th, and I believe then a second reading, if it moves on, is January 9th. So there's still time for public comment.
That'll be December 12th.
Hey, it's my birthday. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move to, I motion did we already do, we already did that, huh? Wow, my head's gone. Okay, here we go. We're on item 5, county referral correspondence, none. We're on the staff comments, item 6, no action, information only.
Okay. Tonight we have item 6.1, which is a short planning commission training, and it is on the Subdivision Map Act. And I would like to introduce Roman Acosta, who is with J.B. Anderson Land Use Planners and has been working part-time for the city. And welcome, Roman.
Good evening, members of the commission. As Donna stated, Roman Acosta, J.B. Anderson Planning. And tonight I have for you a kind of a workshop discussion item discussing tentative parcel maps, tentative subdivision maps, and final maps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just introducing each one briefly. I'm sure the commission has seen many types of maps going around, so the goal here is just to get into the detail a little bit of the process that staff goes through when processing these types of applications. So to start, we got the tentative parcel map. It is defined as any subdividing of any parcel into 4 or fewer parcels. The example as seen on the screen is a parcel map that divides 1 parcel into 2. This is often seen on usually lots with kind of bigger lot size, with maybe their house only takes up a small portion of it and they'd like to subdivide it and sell the other portion. They're free to do that with this instrument. Next we have the tentative subdivision map, and what differs the subdivision map from the parcel map is you're splitting the parcel into any 5 or more parcels. So this is commonly seen in residential developments. As you've seen earlier today in River Run, that was a subdivision map because it had 5 or more parcels. And then lastly, we have the final map. As you also heard earlier, Kerry talking about for River Run, he was talking about since the subdivision map got approved, they will now have to go through the final map process. And the final map process locks in those right-of-ways. So as you've seen, the improvements to Central and California on that example, this instrument will lock in those right-of-ways. It also locks in improvements, and it requires signatures by the Stanislaus County Assessor's Office, City Engineer, If city council action's required on the final map, then it requires signature there. So basically, it just kind of solidifies everything in the tentative process and kind of just puts it in concrete. So now I'm going to kind of take you through the process of steps that staff goes through when we receive interest from the public or we receive an application for any of these three types of maps. So first, we have the pre-application meeting. We recommend this to basically everyone that we talk to. What the pre-application meeting does is it kind of encapsulates the standards that the city will expect from the potential applicant. City staff gets together with the appropriate departments. They discuss the project and develop a plan to move forward. The reason why this is such a good process at the beginning is it saves time in the end, because if the applicant knows the expectations of the city, they're less likely to be confused or have the process take longer than it really needs to be on their end. Step 2 is the physical submittal of the application. So after a meeting, or the meeting is not required, so once we receive an application, city staff has 30 days to act on the application. What city staff does is they receive the application, they go through a checklist, and to make sure the applicant has provided the city with all of the submittal items the city expects to see. Step 3 is an optional task. If for some reason the applicant has asked to put the project on hold, say a submittal item, something wasn't right, city staff will issue a application incompleteness letter, which lets the applicant know why their application isn't moving forward, and just kind of gives them an idea of where in the process their application is. Step 4, we have a complete application. So once the application has been deemed complete, planning staff prepares a referral and it's sent out to all responsible agencies. Some agencies include Caltrans, Comcast, all over really. It really depends on the project. Some projects, Caltrans is relevant. Some projects you have PG&E infrastructure. Some projects you have MID. It really depends on the project. But what we do is we go through and make sure all those agencies have had a chance to comment and provide the city with comments and concerns, so the city can address that throughout the application process. Step 5 is analysis and conditions of approval. So as staff is receiving comment letters back from agencies, we try and work with the applicant to work those out. Sometimes can't solve everything, so there's conditions that are placed on a project. And those conditions basically guide the project and say, hey, your application has been approved under these conditions. So step 6 is CEQA. CEQA is a very extensive process. I can go an hour talking about CEQA. But what CEQA does, it basically just analyzes all the potential environmental effects a project has. This process is extensive unless there's an exemption. If there's an exemption made, the project doesn't have to go through CEQA. Usually the bigger scale projects require more extensive environmental documents, and that would be an EIR. And also earlier you heard a mitigated negative declaration. So that's basically saying the project will not have a significant impact on the environment if these mitigation measures are met. Step 7 is this here today, Planning Commission. So what city staff does is we compile everything that we have received, all the work we've done, all the analysis, CEQA documents, and we prepare a staff report, resolution, and a PowerPoint, and we present it to you as the deciding body or city council, just to encapsulate all the work that we've done. And then lastly, city council. So for the subdivision maps and final maps, those all go forward to city council. So what staff does is they encapsulate everything discussed at the planning commission meeting, add that to the information we've already compiled, and we send that over to city council for their decision. And then step 9 is if city council decides to approve the project, staff types up a approval letter, gets that over to the applicant, kind of stating what happened at the city council. That's pretty much it. And me and John Anderson are here to answer any questions you may have.
I just have a quick one. You start out with a tentative map, which is you take a parcel and you break it down to 2 to 4 separate pieces.
Correct.
Subdivision is 5 or more. Final map, do both of those then become a final map?
Good question. Yes, they do.
Okay.
So basically, what the final map instrument does, it just locks in the right-of-ways and improvements. So a lot of parcel maps, they do require right-of-way and improvement standards, which are all locked in on the final map.
One other point of clarification is that the final map, good job, the final map, once a final map's recorded, then you have the ability, theoretically, to sell those parcels that are created. So the fact of the matter might be that the improvements aren't finished. The instrument the city uses is what they call a subdivision improvement agreement that defines the improvement obligation for those improvements, streets, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, landscaping, whatever that might be, that are necessary to make that subdivision whole. And as part of that process, the council will require some financial security, generally a bond, and that allows, theoretically, the map to record, and then the subdivider, whomever that might be, the property owner or developer, has the ability to sell off those individual lots. The guarantee is those improvements will be finished. The guarantee is the security that's posted is part of that. And generally speaking, the subdivision improvement agreement suggests that those improvements be completed somewhere between 12 and 18 months after action by the council and the execution of the agreement. So that's kind of the distinction between the two. So final map is important for a property owner. I mean, quite frankly, property owner can go through this entire process, get an approval of a tentative map, do the improvement plans, and not record the map for one reason or another. And quite frankly, we saw a lot of that happen during this last recession. So you had maps, well, not unlike what River Run's gone through, but others, Dunbar East and West, that had approved maps, but they never pulled the trigger on going to final map because the economy wasn't there to support it. Right. Generally speaking, compliance with the conditions and improvements is a fairly costly endeavor. But that's what's necessary to support the creation of the new lots is being suggested. And one other thing that we've done here, and you saw it with River Run and some of the other projects, well, certainly with Diamond Bar, is that city is looking at long-term maintenance instruments for things like storm drain, streets, extra police protection services, that type of thing. So we're asking, I shouldn't say asking, as a condition of the project, condition of approval, that these projects participate in a community facilities district or special assessment for maintenance-related services. So River Run had that in as a condition of its entitlement. In fact, every project's going to have that in as a condition of entitlement. Again, we're trying to guarantee other revenue streams to help take care of those impacts that these new development will have on city services. Extremely important from that standpoint. So.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Mike, how about that? Okay, so upcoming items, River Cannabis. So are we done?
Yeah. Well, just that we have 6.2 on there, which is an upcoming item.
Mhm.
So actually, in December, you're looking at two things. One item that I'm working on, excuse me, is a development agreement and a conditional use permit for the Riverbank Cannabis Collective, which will be another dispensary that's coming your way. And in addition to that, I am also working on amending the code because we did allow dispensaries and testing labs to be in commercial areas, and so we'll go back to the zoning code and actually put that language in there as permitted or conditional uses. So they'll hopefully be the two items coming to you in December.
Any comments?
Do we have a limit on dispensaries? Is it,
We
we
do
talked
not.
about that for a while, but we didn't.
Right, at one time, we did have a 1 per 16,000,
yeah.
and then that was removed.
Okay, all right.
But we have found that the way our city is set up with the commercial district and the scattered schools, it does really limit the amount of properties available.
Right.
Excuse me. For dispensaries, so we're kind of self-limiting on our geography.
Anything else? All righty, so we're on item 7. Our next regular planning commission meeting will be December 19th, 2017 at 6 p.m. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Recess for the appeals, which will be coming up in a minute. Oh, how about all that with the mic off? We're gonna go ahead and adjourn. Let me do this over again. The next regular planning commission meeting will be December 19th at 6 p.m. Meeting adjourned, and we're gonna close this meeting, and the appeals meeting will commence in a minute. got that right, 'cause that's sure's been a bad habit.
Okay. Go ahead and open it.
Welcome to the Riverbank's Appeal Board's meeting, City of Riverbank, Tuesday, November 21st, 2017. The time is now, what, 7:05?
8.
Oh, 8:10? A roll call, please.
Appeals Board, Edward Tobacco.
Here.
Appeals Board Member Joan Stewart is absent. Appeals Board Member Scott McRitchie.
Present.
Vice Chair Larry King. Here. Chair Anthony McKinney.
Here. Okay, call to order. Okay, conflict of interest. Any appeals board member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time. Seeing none, no conflicts, moving forward. Public comments, no act can be taken at this time. At this time, members of the public may comment on any items appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the appeals board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon for record purposes. State your name, city of residence. Please make your comments brief. Nothing from the floor. Moving forward. Consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar. Item 3.1, approval of the April 19, 2016 Appeal Board's meeting. Is it recommended that the Appeals Board approve the draft meeting minutes as presented?
Item 3.1.
Yeah. Mine different? Or am I reading a different date?
No, that's right.
Oh, there we are. Action to repeal or replace the May 17, 2016 Appeals Board minutes of record with amended minutes. It is recommended that Appeals Board member King, Stewart, Tobacco, and Chair McRitchie abstain. Approve the following actions. Rescind the board 06/21/16 vote that approve of the 05/17/2016 Appeal Board's meeting, and 2, repeal the 017/2016 minutes from the record. Replace the repeal minutes by approving the amended 2017 Appeal Board's minute as presented. Okay, so
I'd like to make a motion to take the action to repeal and replace the May 17th, 2016 Appeals Board minutes of record with amended minutes, and it includes rescinding the board's 06/21/16 vote that approved the 05/17/2016 Appeals Board minutes, repeal the minutes from the record, and replace the repealed minutes by the approval of the amended May 17th, 2016 Appeals Board minutes as presented.
I second it.
What was different?
The minutes that were presented to you back in May, back in June?
Back in
May.
June.
In May.
May.
Were removed, were actually presented to you when they were in draft mode and they weren't completed. So you went ahead and approved minutes that were not actually completed. So I corrected them and I made sure they were completed, and I'm presenting them to you now to clean up the record.
Outstanding.
Okay, so that's Appeals Board Member Tobacco.
Yes.
McRitchie will abstain. Vice Chair King.
Yes.
Chair McKinney.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Now we can consider consent items 3.1-1 through 3.1-3. Those are 3 sets of minutes for July 19th, 2016, August 16, 2016, and September 20, 2016.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of item 3.1-1, approval of the July 19th, 2006 minutes. 3.1-2, approval of the August 16th, 2016 Appeals Board meeting minutes. And item 3.1-3, approval of the September 20th, 2016 Appeals Board meeting minutes.
Appeals Board Member Tabacco.
Yes.
McRitchie will abstain. Vice Chair King.
Yes.
Chair McKinney.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. One business item 4, there are no items
Okay,
to consider.
business items, there are none. That's it.
That's it.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Hmm.